This is a guy praying right in the middle of the plane at the very front towards the flight deck. They're blocking this person and this person, which I think is a flight attendant. And I'm guessing all of this is happening during a meal service. I'm going to make 3 assumptions in this video, and I would be very clear that these are assumptions. I wasn't there. First is this. This guy right here on the floor that's praying is a Muslim. Later in this video, I'm going to show you a different Muslim, or someone who I think is a Muslim, doing something that is very similar, but for a very different reason, and I'll explain in a minute. Second assumption. I think this guy is a passenger, and that they're waiting to go to the bathroom or go to their seat. It's not really clear in this video. And the third thing that I'm going to assume is that this person right here that you're looking at kind of their shoulder is a flight attendant. And if he is a flight attendant, I need to speak to who is ever in charge of these uniforms, because this is a ridiculously tight shirt. Ridiculously tight. All right, let's check out this video.
Qui nous passe le médecin, c'est bon.
Now I have to pause it right there, because the last time that I had a video of somebody getting hit, it was a passenger hitting a flight attendant, and I talked about how inappropriate it was and how acceptable it was, and I talked about a few different things that were going on in that video. YouTube decided they wanted to penalize my channel for it. Apparently it's okay for minors to wear thongs and twerk, and people talk about other aviation tragedies, but talking about somebody that's a flight attendant or flight crew member being attacked and me talking about that's not acceptable. So I'm going to pause the video right there. I'll let you assume what happens right after that happens. Now, I was wrong about something. The guy at the top of the screen here, I guess, is a flight attendant. Otherwise, why would they be taking the phone here? The next thing that I want to bring your attention to is that unless you are on your own private plane, that you are the only person that is typically flying on it, I would never, ever get down onto your hands and knees and touch the floor of that plane. Not if it's carpet, not if it's the weird rubbery stuff that's there by the bathrooms. Never, ever would I ever do that. I'd never get out of my seat without wearing my shoes. Just the other day, I saw a baby that was like crawling around. They were like a couple rows behind me. They were like crawling around on the ground, and then the parents would pick them up and they would hold the baby, and then they put the baby back on the ground. The baby's like crawling around the aisle. I would never. It is filthy dirty, these planes, especially on the ground, especially near the bathroom, because things don't quite make it in the toilet, and then the plane pitches up and some of those things drip down into that little rubber matty thing. So you being down on your hands and knees at the bathroom area is gross. Don't ever do that, ever. Next, you're going to notice that there's a galley cart that's missing. This means they are probably doing some type of in-flight service and the plane is in flight, because those slots are almost always full, meaning they have their little galley carts in there. They're always full. And if there was not a galley cart in there, which I have never really seen that I can think of, but I'm sure I've seen it. But if there was not a galley cart in there, then these little thingies, where the official aeronautical term is galley cart holder inner thing, it would be flipped down. But as you can see here in the video, they're flipped up, which means somebody has removed the galley cart and is somewhere on the plane with it, which means they're in flight going somewhere. And that means that this person in the exceptionally tight shirt with no badge on is a flight crew member. Because even though some passengers, when they're on the planes, treat the airplanes like it's some low-budget motel, and they just take their shoes and socks off and put their feet on a wall like they're at a Motel 6, even though I've seen some of the most low-brow behavior, I guess is what you would call it, I would never imagine, even though I give it time. I would never imagine that a passenger under any circumstance would ever pick up the intercom phone that we use to talk to other crew members, and that we would talk to the flight deck, or the flight deck where the passengers make the announcements. I would never imagine a passenger would do that, although I've seen some things that I would never imagine that a passenger would do that they did. So, but it seems like this is a flight crew member that's taking the phone to talk to somebody. I'm guessing the pilots. It is possible they're also, because they're doing a galley service, the cart might be in the middle of the plane here. They're actually speaking to the other flight attendants in the back. There's really no way to know at this point. Now I'm going to guess, because I've never seen a uniform anything like that before, and in the US you're required to have your badge out while you're operating or while you're doing your job. So I'm guessing this isn't an American crew that's going on. By American I mean US crew, not American Airlines. So I'm not guessing it's just not a United States flight crew, cabin crew that's operating this here. But I'm guessing most countries have laws like we have in the US. Now this is something I took off of the US government website. It's a law in our manual's 121.580 prohibition on interference with crew members. It says no person may assault, threaten, intimidate, or interfere with crew members in the performance of their crew member duties aboard an aircraft while being operated under this part. When you as a passenger get on a normal airline and you go somewhere, you are flying Part 121. That's basically what it is. There's Part 91, Part 135, Part 121. There's different sections and there's different rules. There's different rules for rest requirements for the crews. There are different rules for the amount of passengers that you can have to the ratio of flight attendants. There's all kinds of different rules. And this 121 is what you as a passenger, when you're getting on United or American or Delta or Spirit or Frontier or JetBlue, any of these airlines that you fly in the US, you're flying under Part 121. And as you can see, this rule is pretty clear, and there is nowhere saying there's a religious exemption, meaning that if you want to pray, that you don't have to follow these rules. Obviously, he had a brief moment of anger where right after praying to his God, he decided that it was time to physically assault somebody. And you might say, oh, Kelsey, like, you've never been mad, and it's true. Of course, everybody's had their wrong days, like me on a plane with no snacks. I mean, I'm right there with that guy. But you might say, okay, maybe he had just kind of a brief moment where he just lost control. He was really angry. I don't know what was said. He was so loud on the plane there. And maybe he just had a bad moment. I guess it's possible, right? Well, after they had landed the plane, obviously law enforcement had been called by the pilots because, you know, you're not allowed to punch people on a plane. And here is a video of his interaction with law enforcement.
Qu'est-ce que j'ai fait? Eh mais vous êtes malade là, vous prenez quelqu'un. Vous faites quoi là? Vous faites quoi là? Allah Akbar! Non, il n'y a pas là. Non, il n'y a pas là. كذاب. يا كذاب, il n'y a pas là. يا كذاب.
I mean, I was right there on his side until this, because I thought maybe after he was praying, maybe he was praying for snacks, you know what I mean? And like after he was praying, they stood up and we can't hear what he said to the flight attendant. Maybe the flight attendant said like, no more snacks for you. And then he had lost his cool and decided to get aggressive with the flight attendant. Maybe that was the case. So, you know, he had his brief outburst and then this happened. Something that I never want to hear from anybody before they get aggressive with people on an aircraft is this part, where he says, Allah Akbar. Not a good look, sir. I am personally way less forgiving than a lot of people are towards people who are unable to behave themselves in a group setting, like an aircraft. You're all up there together, a couple hundred people. You got to just sit down, shut up, and color. It's kind of how I feel about it. And there are times in my life where I've had to do that. Not happy about it, but this is the world that we live in. You're there, cramped in your middle seat, irritated, and you're got one bag of peanuts and it's a 4.5-hour flight. You maybe, in my case, I'm jet lagged, I'm irritated, I'm tired, I just want to take a shower and go to sleep, and you're just not in a great mood. That is no justification, no matter what the circumstance is, to get up and assault somebody, right? Especially a flight crew member while they're trying to do their job, that you're impeding them from doing everything and obviously not listening to anything they're saying, or law enforcement as they're trying to get you off the plane because you obviously can't follow the rules of society. Now, I personally think there should be a naughty boy and a naughty girl list where the airlines, not only do they punish you for committing your crime of assaulting a crew member or anybody, whether it's a crew member or not, you can't be punching people on the plane, but you should have that list where you are going to pay your normal penalties and fines for assault and battery charges and all that stuff. But I feel like all airlines should have an interconnected thing for all airlines in the world where if you are unable to behave yourself, you're put on a no-fly list for a certain amount of time. It depends on the crime. Obviously, something minor, then it's minor. Maybe it's a year, or maybe it's 5 years. And it doesn't really matter in where you were. Like you were going to some exotic destination, and on your way to that exotic destination, you decided to pull up whatever you want to call what he was doing. And then you now land at your exotic destination, and then it's your problem to get back. I mean, you could go ahead and just go old school style, take the boat back, takes a week or so. That sounds like your problem. Or if you're really rich and you want to charter your own jet and fly back in style, and then, I mean, the carpet on these fancy jets are like $100,000, so they're probably pretty clean. So you could hop down there and pray because, you paid a few $100,000. Well, then you can block the aisle. That's totally different rules. But since you can't get along with everybody else, then you can't go ahead and fly on the bus of the skies with the rest of us. Here's the other thing to keep in mind. If me, as an American, sitting on a U.S. plane and watching this happen, and you're now in the air, blocking the flight deck and interrupting crew members, and then you decide to stand up and get aggressive to the crew members, keep in mind where this is location-wise on the whole plane. They are a few feet away from the flight deck. This guy has now engaged in a physical assault with a crew member where there's a crew member, bulletproof door, but you get what I'm saying, and then it's the pilots. And this guy has engaged that person, which means they're obviously not following the rules, so I'm not going to follow the rules. As you can see here, this is a threat level that we use as pilots, and the highest threat level you can have is someone trying to breach the flight deck. Well, if someone's attacking a crew member and the next thing behind them is the door, how am I supposed to know that the next thing they're not going to try to do is go ahead and breach that door? So without a shadow of a doubt, if I'm sitting there in the first couple rows and I see this happening, well, I'm going to engage that person. And I'm hoping other people are going to join in the party. And I'm going to do whatever it takes to subdue that person, because how do I know that that is where they're going to end? They're just going to punch that guy and walk back to their seat and, go eat their meal and watch their in-flight entertainment? I don't know that. So I'm going to engage them. And I would guess in the U.S., and I would hope in the U.S., the other guys that were on the plane that could see that happening would engage that person as well. Unfortunately, what we ended up getting was a guy who ended up putting his hand on the back of this guy. I don't know if he was going to big spoon him and make him feel better, but that's all that happened. People were just like, ooh, okay, don't do that anymore. And that was the end of it, which to me is crazy. Now, earlier I mentioned there was a similar incident of a Muslim guy who engaged somebody else on the plane and started following similar activities. That person is Mike Tyson. And remember how I said if there was somebody on the plane that was engaging somebody and I felt like everybody should get in on it? And that's because no matter who you are, taking down an angry Mike Tyson is more than a one-person job. I don't care who you are. So if I'm jumping on Mike Tyson, I'm hoping there's some other people behind me, because it's not going to go very well for me by myself against Mike Tyson. Let's be realistic. Check out this video.
This is George talking to Mike Tyson, bro. This shit crazy, bro. Mike Tyson. My dog done got lit, man. He over here rapping with Tyson. Mike Tyson trying to give us some shrooms. You don't know how to act. Tyson looking out, man. This shit crazy. He should have never gave you his money. JetBlue, mid flight. Boy just got beat up by Mike Tyson. Turn that way. Yeah, he got f***ed up. Just trying to ask for an autograph, man. I don't know what happened.
Now, I had to delete the part again of the hitting because, like I said, I'm not allowed to do that apparently on this channel. So you can kind of take a guess of what happened with Mike Tyson and this guy. But to be clear, it rhymes with smunches his face in. And what's crazy to me is that this is what he looked like at the end, which honestly is a lot better than I was going to expect. Now, in this case, it seems that this guy decided to annoy Mike Tyson and to give him an autograph or who knows what, but he was clearly badgering him and irritating him, which is never acceptable. Like, you just want to sit there on your flight and, again, shut up and color in your seat. That's what we're all paying $150 or $200 to do, or $800. I don't know. They're in business class, so maybe it's $1,000. But sit down, shut up, and color. That's kind of the name of the game here when you're flying in today. And so he decided to not do that. He decided to badger a guy that made a professional living of punching people in the face. He decided to badger that guy of all the guys. If you're unfamiliar with who Mike Tyson is, this is what he looked like in his prime. I don't know why you would be so stupid to annoy this guy on purpose. That would be like if I was on a plane and Conor McGregor accidentally bumped into me, or I bumped into Conor McGregor and then he started mouthing off to me. Like, I'm not going to just like escalate the situation, because no matter what, the reality is that if I'm going to fight Conor McGregor, it's just not going to work out for me, no matter what the situation is, right? So this guy obviously doesn't have that same type of common sense and decides to badger Tyson until,
Turn that way.
he looked like this.
Yeah, he got up.
Now, I don't know all of what happened in this video because things got cut out, but obviously something had happened which made Tyson go over the edge to decide to start smunching his crease in. So I don't know exactly what happened there, but clearly Tyson was just sitting there in a seat from what I can see, and this guy decided to engage him. So the moral of both of these stories right here: get some basic manners and stop irritating other people on an aircraft. I look forward to hearing from you. Until then, keep the blue side up.